She was the most naive girl in the entire academy, and that's why she became the target of the cruelest bet. But when she discovered the truth, her heart already belonged to him completely. Before diving into this story that will break your heart and rebuild it, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and tell me in the comments if you've ever had your heart broken by a lie. All the illustrations in this video were created by me using artificial intelligence. Now, get ready to learn the story of Yumi and the prince who played with fire and ended up getting burned by his own game. Rain tapped softly against the windows of the Celestial Academy of Arts as Yumi Sakuraba hurried through the halls with a stack of books that threatened to topple over at any moment. Her worn shoes squeaked against the polished marble floor, and her uniform, the only one she owned and which she religiously washed every night, showed signs of overuse. Unlike the other students who sported multiple perfectly ironed uniforms and expensive accessories, Yumi only had the bare essentials. At 20, she was known throughout the academy not for her lineage or wealth, but for something far more peculiar: her utter and disconcerting innocence. In a world where young nobles learned to lie before they could walk, where smiles were weapons and words were daggers wrapped in silk, Yumi Sakuraba shone like an impossible anomaly. She believed in the inherent goodness of people, took every word at face value, and her brutal honesty had caused more than one scandal in the elaborate social dynamics of the elite. That spring morning, as she finally arrived at the library and dropped her books with a sigh of relief, she had no idea that her life was about to become the center of a cruel game. The library was her sanctuary, the one place where her poverty didn't matter, where only knowledge counted. The towering shelves of ancient oak reached up to the vaulted ceiling, and the smell of parchment and ink calmed her like nothing else could. She settled into her usual corner, near the ancient history section, and began organizing her notes for the essay due that week. Professor Watanabe had said her work on the fall of the Eastern Empire was exceptional, and those rare words of praise were the fuel that kept her going in an environment where she clearly didn't belong. The laughter that echoed from the hallway made her instinctively flinch. She recognized those voices, the Academy's elite, the untouchables, those whose families had built this kingdom stone by stone. Normally, they passed her by, but today the laughter stopped right behind her. "Look who's here," said the arrogant voice of Damian Cross, heir to the Northern Duchy. He was tall, blonde, with that sharp beauty that came from generations of selective noble breeding. The little bookworm, Sakuraba. Yumi didn't look up. She'd learned that ignoring them was her best defense. If she didn't react, they usually got bored and left. But today, they seemed to be in a particularly cruel mood. "Did you know that yesterday she asked the etiquette teacher if it was true that you were supposed to write a thank you letter when someone insulted you elegantly?" Another voice continued. It was Ryusei Yamamoto, the son of the Minister of War, known for collecting broken hearts like others collected stamps. Because he thought Lady Winters was being kind when she said her dress was adorably quaint, like something my great-grandmother would have worn. Laughter erupted. Yumi felt her cheeks burn. Yes, she'd made that mistake. But how could she have known that quaint in the noble context was an insult? In the countryside, where she'd grown up, words meant what they meant, without hidden layers of venom. "It's almost tender," added a third voice, feminine and sharp as broken glass. It was Serena Blackwood, the unofficial queen of the academy. Like a puppy who doesn't understand that it's about to be euthanized. "I have an idea," Ryusei interrupted, and there was something dangerous in his tone. "We're all bored, aren't we? The semester has been tedious. How about we liven it up with a little bet?" "I'm listening," Damian said with interest. "It's simple. Let's bet on who can make the naive Sakuraba fall in love. Whoever does it wins." Yumi felt her heart stop. Her hand froze on the quill. They couldn't be serious. It was cruel even by noble standards. "What's the prize?" Damian asked. "The gold trophy from the fencing championship," Ryusei declared, "the one my family donated this year. It's worth a fortune, but more importantly, the prestige is immense." "Interesting," Damian murmured. "But we need rules. It doesn't work if she finds out about the bet." Of course, Ryusei agreed. "And it has to be real love, not just attraction." We need proof, a confession, a love letter, something undeniable. I'm coming in, Daemon said. Me too, added another student whom Yumi didn't recognize. What about you, Serena? Ryusei asked. Please, she mocked. I don't play with mice. Besides, I don't have those ... inclinations. But it will be fun to watch him tear himself apart when he finds out the truth. So it's settled, Daemon began. I will participate. The new voice made everyone fall silent. It was deep, authoritative, with that distinctive tone that only came from being born to command. Yumi knew that voice, though she had never spoken directly to its owner. It was Haruto Kiyomizu, the second prince of the kingdom. You, Daemon sounded genuinely surprised. Your Royal Highness wants to participate in a student bet. Why not? Haruto replied indifferently. As you said, the semester has been boring. Besides, it will be educational to see if someone so pure can be corrupted. Yumi gripped her quill so tightly it snapped in half. Ink spilled over her notes, ruining hours of work, but she didn't care. Tears blurred her vision as the voices continued to discuss the details of how they would compete for her as if she were a trophy at a fair. It starts tomorrow, Ryusei declared. May the best liar win. The footsteps faded away amid laughter. Yumi waited a full 5 minutes, counting every second, before daring to move. When she finally looked up, the library was empty except for her and her shattered dreams. With trembling hands, she gathered her things. The books she loved so much suddenly seemed as heavy as stones. She ran to her dorm, ignoring the curious glances of other students. Only when she closed the door behind her did she allow herself to collapse. Her shared room was small, the smallest in the academy, located in the attic where the summer heat was stifling and the winter cold penetrating. But it was hers, earned through years of obsessive study and sacrifice. Her roommate, Emiya Tanaka, another scholarship student, found her an hour later, still crying in her narrow bed. Yumi, what happened? Emiya sat down next to her, her round face filled with concern. Emiya was her only true friend here, another outsider who understood what it was like not to belong. Between sobs, Yumi told her everything. Every cruel word, every laugh, the horrible bet. Emiya turned pale, then red with fury. Those damn bastards, he spat, using language that would have horrified his etiquette teachers. How dare they? Who do they think they are? They are exactly who they think they are, Yumi murmured, wiping away tears. The honors of the world, and they're right. What can I do? I'm nobody. You're nobody. Emiya hugged her tightly. You're the brightest student in this academy. Your essay on the Eastern Empire is better than anything those idiots could produce in their entire lives. But that doesn't matter here, does it? Yumi sat down, her brown hair falling messily over her shoulders. All that matters is blood, money, power. I'm just entertainment to them. Then don't give them the satisfaction, Emiya said firmly. Avoid them, all of them, especially the prince, Yumi nodded, wiping away the last of her tears. You're right. I'll just ... keep my head down until graduation. There are only 6 months left. I can survive 6 months. But fate, that cruel master of irony, had other plans. The next day, Yumi arrived at the library extra early, hoping to avoid everyone. She settled at a different table. In the agriculture section, no one among the elite would ever set foot in that area. She had just opened her book when a shadow fell across the pages. Excuse me, is the seat taken? She looked up, and her heart nearly stopped. Haruto Kiyomizu stood there, more imposing up close than she'd imagined. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2, with the kind of build that came from years of combat training. His black hair was brushed back perfectly, revealing a noble brow and cheekbones that looked sculpted by the gods themselves. But it was his eyes that caught her steel gray, cold and calculating, but holding something deeper, something she couldn't quite decipher. There ... there are plenty of other seats available, Your Highness, she managed to say, hating how her voice trembled. But this one has the best light, he replied, sitting down without waiting for her permission. Also, I need to consult some ancient history texts for my thesis. And I noticed you have the complete collection of the Imperial Annals. It was true. She'd been waiting weeks for those books to become available, and she'd finally gotten them all. She couldn't refuse without being incredibly rude, and her strict upbringing, the only thing her grandmother had been able to give her besides love, wouldn't allow it. Of course, Your Highness, he murmured, pushing some of the volumes toward him. For the next hour, they worked in silence. Or rather, Yumi tried to work while feeling the weight of his gaze on her. Every time she looked up, he was staring at his books, but there was something in the tension in his shoulders, in the way his fingers quietly tapped on the table, that told her he was as aware of her as she was of him. Your analysis of Emperor Takeshi's military strategy is fascinating, he said suddenly, causing her to almost jump out of her chair. How ... Have you read my essay? Professor Watanabe showed it to me, he admitted, and there was something akin to genuine respect in his voice. He said it was the most impressive work he'd seen from a student in a decade. Especially your theory about how the drought of 847 influenced the decision to retreat from the northern pass. Yumi blinked in surprise. No one had ever shown any real interest in her academic theories. Well, if you examine the climate records from the time and cross-reference them with military supply reports ... double quotes, and suddenly he was talking, explaining his research with a passion she couldn't contain. Haruto listened with an intensity that baffled her, asking intelligent questions that challenged her to delve deeper into his analysis. Brilliant, he murmured when she finished. Absolutely brilliant. A blush crept across her cheeks. It's nothing special. Don't downplay yourself, he said sharply. It's an exceptional job, and you know it. Or you should know it. There was a moment of awkward silence. Yumi didn't know how to respond to that. Then Haruto cleared his throat. I was wondering, he began, and for the first time he seemed almost nervous, if you could help me with my own research. I'm working on something similar, on the late period wars of succession. I'd pay you, of course. I don't need money, she replied automatically, even though it was a lie. She desperately needed money, but her pride wouldn't allow her to take it from him, not after what she'd heard yesterday. So what do you need? The question took her by surprise. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. There was something in his eyes that didn't fit the image of the arrogant prince she had imagined. He seemed genuinely interested in her answer. My grandmother, he found himself saying before he could stop himself. She's sick. The medicine in the countryside is ... inadequate. I've been saving up to bring her to the capital for treatment, but ... double quotes done, he said immediately. My personal physician will attend to you. He's the best in the kingdom. I can't accept that, he protested, though his heart leapt at the possibility. It's not charity, he said firmly. It's a fair exchange. Your knowledge for my resources. That's how the world works, isn't it? There was something bitter in that last sentence, but before I could analyze it, he was standing up. Same time tomorrow, he asked. She should say no. Every instinct screamed at her to say no. But she thought of her grandmother coughing on cold nights, growing weaker and weaker. Okay, he whispered. He nodded and left, leaving behind a faint scent of sandalwood and something uniquely masculine that made her stomach flutter strangely. What do you think you're doing? Yumi jumped. Emei stood there, arms crossed and wearing a disapproving expression. Emei, you scared me. Have you already forgotten the bet? Her friend hissed. The conversation yesterday. Of course not. Yumi began packing up her things with jerky movements, but my grandmother needs medical help. If I can get it by exchanging academic knowledge. Double quotes Yumi, please don't be so naive. Emei took her hands. He's the prince. He doesn't need your academic help. This is part of the game. I know, Yumi admitted quietly. But if I can get treatment for my grandmother while keeping my guard up. Emei sighed. Just be careful, please. Not everyone is as good as you think they are. The following days established a strange routine. Every afternoon, Haruto would appear in the library with expensive tea and pastries from the capital's best bakery. At first, Yumi tried to keep things strictly academic. But Haruto had a way of slipping personal questions into discussions of ancient military strategy. "How did you end up interested in history?" he asked one day as she nibbled on a cream cake that probably cost more than a week's worth of food. "My grandfather," she answered before she could stop herself. "He was a teacher in the countryside. Not of anything important, just the local school, but he had this small collection of history books. He used to read to me about great empires and epic battles when I was a child. He said understanding the past was the only way to avoid repeating its mistakes." "Wise man," Haruto murmured. "Does he still teach?" "She died when I was 15, he said softly. "Right after my mother. I'm sorry." There was something about the way he said it, simple and unfussy, that made it more sincere than any elaborate condolence I had ever received. "And you?" she asked, surprising herself. "Why history?" Haruto remained silent for so long that he thought he wouldn't answer. "Because in history, you can clearly see who the heroes and villains were. In the present, the lines are ... more blurred. 1 week turned into 2, then 3. Against her better judgment, Yumi began to look forward to their study sessions. Haruto was different from what she had expected. Yes, there was arrogance there, the kind that came from never having to question her place in the world. But there was also a sharp intelligence, a dry wit that made her laugh when she wasn't on guard, and moments of surprising vulnerability. Like when he told her about his childhood in the palace. "People think growing up as a prince is a fairy tale," he said one rainy day, looking out the window as the rain pounded against the glass. "But it's more like being a bird in a gilded cage. Pretty to look at, but never free to fly. But you have everything," Yumi pointed out. "Power, wealth, privilege ... I have everything except choices," he replied, and there was a bitterness in his voice that surprised her. "My life was planned before I was born. Who I will marry, what I will study, how I will serve the kingdom. The only rebellion I allowed myself was to renounce my birthright, to let my older brother be the heir. That's why I'm here, at the academy, instead of in the palace learning to be a future king. Do you regret it?" "Never," he said fiercely. "I'd rather be second and have some freedom than first and be completely chained." It was the first time Yumi considered that maybe, just maybe, even princes could feel trapped. A month after their agreement began, the incident happened that changed everything. Yumi was walking toward the library when she heard raised voices from an empty classroom. She stopped, recognizing Serena Blackwood's voice. "How's your little bet going, Damien?" he asked with cruel amusement. "Bad," Damien grunted. "The little mouse avoids me like the plague." It's almost as if she knows ... double quotes. "Well, Ryusei isn't having any better luck," Serena laughed. "Yesterday he tried his misunderstood bad boy routine and she literally ran away. It was hilarious. And the prince, that's the interesting part." Serena's voice became speculative. "They spend every afternoon together at the library. My cousin saw them yesterday and swears it seemed ... intense. Damn, Damien cursed. Of course he'd win. He's got all the advantages, power, looks, that mysterious prince thing." "I don't know," Ryusei interrupted, seemingly appearing out of nowhere. "I saw him in the library with her yesterday, and he seemed different. Like he was actually listening to what she was saying." "Don't be ridiculous," Serena mocked. "It's Haruto Kiyomizu. The man is a machine. He has no real feelings, only ambition and boredom." "Maybe," Ryusei murmured, "but I swear the way he looks at her ... It's acting," Damien cut in. "It has to be. He took a chance like the rest of us. Yumi had heard enough. She ran, tears blurring her vision. Of course it was all a lie. How had she been so stupid to start believing that maybe, just maybe, the prince saw her as more than just a game? She burst into the library, grateful to find it empty. She sank into her usual chair and buried her face in her arms, sobbing silently. It had all been an act. Every smile, every interested question, every moment of apparent connection. "Yumi," he froze. No. It couldn't be him. Not now. "Yumi, what happened?" Haruto was suddenly kneeling beside her chair, his voice filled with concern. Are you hurt? Did someone do something to you? She raised her head, and the expression on her face must have been answer enough because he turned pale. What happened? He demanded, and there was something dangerous in his voice now, something that reminded her that this man had been trained to be a warrior since he could walk. Why do you pretend to care? She whispered. He blinked, clearly taken aback. I'm not faking. Yumi, what? The bet. He spat the words out like venom. I know about the bet. The color drained completely from his face. He stood slowly, and for a moment he looked every inch the cold, distant prince everyone knew. How did you find out? Does it matter? She stood up too, shaking with fury and pain. Does it change anything? You bet on me as if I were. A thing, a game, entertainment for bored nobles. Yumi, listen to me. No. She stepped back when he took a step toward her. I don't want to hear any more lies. What were you going to do when you won? Laugh with your friends about how easy it was to fool the stupid peasant. No, the vehemence in his voice stopped her. Never. Yumi, yes, I made the bet. It was stupid and cruel, and I regret it. But no buts. Tears streamed freely down her cheeks now. You used me. You made me believe ... You made me think that maybe I mattered, that my knowledge, my company meant something to you. It does mean something, he said desperately. Yumi, please, just listen to me for a minute. No. She gathered her things with trembling hands. Not anymore. You can tell your friends you won, okay? The gullible girl fell completely. Congratulations, Your Highness. Enjoy your trophy. She ran before he could answer, ignoring him calling her name. She ran all the way to her bedroom and locked herself in, ignoring even May's worried knock on the door. The next few days were hell. Yumi skipped all of her classes, unable to bear the thought of seeing any of them, especially Haruto. Mei brought her food and notes, muttering creative curses about princes and nobles in general. On the third day, a package arrived. Inside was a letter and a small chest. Yumi, the letter began in Haruto's elegant handwriting. I know you don't want to listen to me, and I understand. But I need you to know the truth, the whole truth. Yes, I made the bet. It was the first day, before I really knew you. I thought it would be easy, another game to pass the time. I was arrogant and cruel, and I have no excuse. But then I met you. I really met you. Not the naive girl image everyone has, but you. Your brilliance, your passion for knowledge, the way your eyes light up when you talk about history. The way you eat cakes, saving the strawberry for last because it's your favorite part. The way you move your lips slightly when you read something particularly interesting. I gave up the bet 2 weeks ago. I told Daimon and Ryusei I wouldn't participate anymore. They didn't believe me, they laughed. They said I was only saying that because I'd already won, but I hadn't won anything. I had lost everything the moment I realized I'd fallen in love with you. Yes, I fell in love with you. It wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't part of the game. It just happened somewhere between your theory about Emperor Takeshi and the way you laugh when you think no one's looking. In the chest is the golden trophy. I took it from Ryusei's trophy room. Not because I won, but because I wanted to destroy it. I wanted to erase any evidence of that stupid bet. But then I thought maybe you should have it. As evidence of my stupidity, my arrogance, and my absolute horror at having hurt the only person who has ever meant anything real to me. Your grandmother is already being treated by my doctor. That won't change, no matter what you decide about us. It's a promise I keep, not as a prince, but as someone who owes you far more than I could ever repay. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just needed you to know that what I feel for you is real. More real than anything I've ever felt in my life. Yours, although I have no right to be. Haruto Yumi read the letter 3 times before opening the chest. There it was, the infamous golden trophy, shining mockingly. She touched it with a finger, surprised by how cold it felt. What are you going to do? Mei asked softly. I don't know, Yumi admitted. How can I trust him after this? Do you want my honest opinion? Yumi nodded. I think he's an idiot who did something unforgivable. I said. But I also think he truly fell in love with you. I've seen him look at you when you think he isn't looking. No one is that good an actor. But it started with a lie. Double quotes. Many things start badly. I noted. The question is it worth it? That night, there was a dance at the academy. A monthly event where students practice their social skills. Yumi never attended. She didn't own appropriate dresses and hated being the center of attention. But that night, as she watched the golden trophy glimmer in the moonlight, she made a decision. He said suddenly. I need your help, so that I need a dress. For the dance, I looked at her in surprise, then smiled slowly. I know just the person. An hour later, Yumi stood in front of the mirror, unable to believe her eyes. The dress was simple but elegant, a deep midnight blue that somehow made her honey-colored eyes shine like gold. I had worked magic with her hair, pulling it back into an elegant bun with a few strands framing her face. You always have been, I said tenderly. Only now the outside matches the inside. Yumi took a deep breath and headed toward the ballroom. She could hear the music coming from the hallway, the sounds of laughter and conversation floating in the night air. She paused in the doorway, her courage nearly failing her. The hall was decorated with thousands of candles and white flowers. Students twirled on the dance floor in their finest attire, a vision of silk and jewels in the golden light. And there, in a dark corner, was Haruto. He looked terrible. His usual princely composure was gone, replaced by deep dark circles under his eyes and a defeated expression that broke her heart nonetheless. He stood alone, ignoring several students' attempts to engage him in conversation. When Yumi entered, it was as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Conversation ceased. The music seemed to fade. Everyone stared at her, the woodcock from the countryside who had somehow transformed into something ethereal. Haruto looked up, and their eyes met across the room. The expression on his face, hope, fear, longing, all mixed together in a moment of raw vulnerability almost made her turn and run. But she didn't. Instead, she walked straight toward him, ignoring the whispers that followed her like a wave. Yumi, he breathed as she stopped in front of him. I didn't expect ... double quotes. I received your letter, he said simply. I understand. If you can't forgive me, dance with me. He blinked, clearly not expecting that. What? Dance with me? He repeated, extending his hand. Just once, then we'll talk. With a trembling hand, he took hers. He led her to the dance floor just as a slow waltz began. His hands found their positions, one on her waist, the other holding hers, and began to move. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just moved together, and Yumi marveled at how well they fit together, as if they were made for this. I'm sorry, he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. I'm so sorry I hurt you. If I could turn back time, but you can't, she interrupted. None of us can. We can only move forward. Is there a way forward for us? He asked, the desperate hope in his voice almost breaking her. I don't know, she admitted honestly. You hurt me, Haruto. You made me question everything, every moment we shared, every word you said. I know, and I hate it. But, she continued, and felt him tense, I also know that what I feel for you is real. Despite everything, despite the bet, despite the pain, I fell in love with you. The real you, not the prince, but the man who passionately argues about ancient history and brings 3 different kinds of tea because he's not sure which I prefer. Why you am I ... double quotes. One chance, he said firmly. One chance to get it right. No baits, no games, no lies. If you lie to me again, about anything, it's over. Do you understand? Yes, he said fervently. Yes, I understand, Yumi. I swear, don't swear. She cut him off. Just show me, day by day, show me who you really are. The dance ended, but they remained on the dance floor, staring at each other. Then, slowly, Haruto leaned in and pressed his forehead against hers. I'll show you, he promised. Every day for the rest of my life if you let me. From the side of the dance floor, Daimon watched in disgust. I can't believe it, he murmured to Ryusei. He really fell in love with her. I told you, Ryase replied, but there was something thoughtful in his expression, the way he looks at her ... It was never an act. Serena appeared next to them, her beautiful face twisted in a grimace. This is ridiculous. She's a nobody. Not anymore, said a new voice. It was the Crown Prince, Haruto's older brother, watching the couple with interest. My brother has never looked at anyone like that. Not even Lady Catherine, whom our parents wanted him to marry. Lady Catherine, Serena perked up. The daughter of the Duke of the East, the same. She be arriving next week for the spring celebration. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. The next few days were a careful dance of rebuilding. Haruto kept his word, no more lies, no more games. He was painfully honest about everything, even when it didn't suit him. My father wants me to marry Lady Catherine, he told her during one of their study sessions, now genuinely focused on research. It's a political alliance. It's been planned since we were children. Yumi felt her heart sink. Oh, I told him no, Haruto continued. 3 days ago, it was ... It wasn't nice. He threatened to disown me. Haruto, you can't lose your title because of me. I wouldn't lose it for you. He corrected her. I would lose it for me, for the right to choose my own life. Yumi, I've been a prisoner of expectations my whole life. With you, I'm free. But your family, my mother understands, he said softly. She married for love, against her family's wishes. She said she'd rather see me happy and without a title than miserable and with a crown. And your brother. Hiroshi thinks I'm crazy, he admitted with a small smile. But he also said it was time for me to do something crazy. Yumi reached across the table, taking his hand. I don't want you to lose everything because of me. I wouldn't lose everything, he said, interlacing their fingers. I'd have you, that's more than enough. But things got complicated when Lady Catherine arrived. She was everything Yumi wasn't: tall, blonde, elegant in that way that only came from generations of noble upbringing. Her dresses cost more than Yumi's family earned in a year, and her bearing screamed power and privilege. So you're the little academic, she said when they met in the Academy Gardens. Yumi had been reading under a tree when Catherine's shadow fell upon her. Lady Catherine, Yumi stood up and bowed appropriately. You don't need to pretend with me, Catherine said coldly. I know exactly what you are. A gold digger who somehow got Haruto entangled in your web. I'm not a gold digger, Yumi said calmly, though her heart was beating furiously. No, so what are you? A country woodcock with no family, no connections, nothing to offer except a pretty face that won't last. I have my intelligence, Yumi said, lifting her chin. My education, my own merit, Catherine laughed. A sound like icy chimes. Your merit, dear child, merit doesn't keep kingdoms together. Alliances do, and Haruto knows it, even if he's temporarily forgotten. He made his decision. Decisions can change, Catherine said with a sharp smile. Especially when one realizes the consequences. Did you know that if Haruto rejects me, my father will withdraw military support from the Eastern Duchy? In times when there are threats of war on the border, Yumi paled. That's blackmail. That's politics, Catherine corrected. Something you clearly don't understand. But I'll make you an offer, woman to woman. Step aside. End this with Haruto. Tell him you don't love him, whatever it takes. In return, I'll make sure your grandmother receives the best medical care for the rest of her life, and that you have a comfortable position at any university you choose. No, Yumi said immediately. Think about it, Catherine said, dropping a card into Yumi's book. You have until tomorrow night. There's a masked ball for the spring celebration. If you haven't finished with Haruto by then, the consequences will be ... unfortunate. He walked away, leaving Yumi trembling. That night, Yumi couldn't sleep. Catherine's words swirled around in her head. War. Could her relationship with Haruto really cause war? You can't be seriously considering this, Emmy, I said when Yumi told her. What if it's true? What if people die because of my selfishness? Your selfishness. Emmy, I looked incredulous. Yumi, love isn't selfish. And if Catherine's father is willing to start a war over a rejected marriage, then he's the problem, not you. But no buts, Emmy, I said firmly. Talk to Haruto. Tell him what she said. But when Yumi went to look for Haruto the next day, she couldn't find him. His servant said he'd been urgently summoned to the palace. The masquerade ball was approaching, and Yumi felt increasingly desperate. Finally, an hour before the ball, a package arrived in her room. Inside was a dress not elaborate like the one Catherine would surely wear, but simple and beautiful, in a soft golden color that shimmered like candlelight. There was a matching mask and a note, "Trust me, everything will be okay. Yours H." With trembling hands, Yumi put on the dress. I helped her with her hair and the mask, a delicate creation of gold lace that covered the upper half of her face. "You're brave," I said. "Don't forget it." The ballroom was transformed into a wonderland of spring flowers and twinkling lights. Everyone wore masks, turning the event into a sea of mystery and intrigue. Yumi entered cautiously, searching for Haruto in the crowd. She found him in the middle of the hall, and her heart nearly stopped. He wasn't wearing a mask, openly defying tradition, and he was standing on a raised platform, as if he were about to make an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice echoing around the room. "I have something to say." The crowd fell silent. Yumi saw Catherine near the front, her silver mask not hiding her confident smile. "As many of you know," Haruto continued, "there have been expectations about my future, about whom I would marry, what alliances I would form. And for a long time, I accepted those expectations as my duty." Catherine stepped forward, clearly expecting a public proposal. "But duty without love is a prison," Haruto said, his eyes scanning the crowd. "And I refuse to live in a prison any longer," murmurs ran through the room. "2 months ago," he continued, "I did something unforgivable. I took part in a cruel bet involving an extraordinary woman. A bet to make her fall in love with me." Gasps of shock filled the air. Yumi felt all eyes turn toward her, even with the mask. "But something funny happened," Haruto said, now looking directly at her. "I was the one who fell in love. Completely, irrevocably, permanently in love." "Haruto," the king's voice echoed from the royal balcony. "Stop this nonsense immediately." "No, father," Haruto said calmly. "I've been obedient all my life. I've sacrificed my happiness for duty time and time again. But I won't sacrifice this. I won't sacrifice her." He stepped off the platform and walked straight towards Yumi, the crowd parting like the sea. "I know what Catherine told you," he said softly when he reached her. "About the war, about the consequences, it was all a lie. Her father already signed the military support treaty weeks ago. She was desperate, using fear to separate us. My brother figured it out," she said with a small smile. "Turns out he's more supportive than I thought. He got down on his knees right there in the middle of the ballroom, taking a small box out of his pocket. "Yumi Sakuraba," he said, his voice echoing in the quiet hall. "I started courting you for the wrong reasons, but I want to spend the rest of my life doing it for the right ones. I have no right to ask this of you, not after how we started, but will you marry me?" The silence was deafening. Yumi looked at the ring, simple, elegant, with a single pearl that shone like moonlight, then at Haruto, kneeling before her, disregarding his princely dignity. "Get up," he said softly. His face fell, clearly taking this as rejection. He started to stand, but she stopped him with a hand on his cheek. "Stand up," he repeated, "because I want to look you in the eyes when I say yes." The expression of pure joy that crossed her face was worth all the pain, all the uncertainty. He stood up and, with trembling hands, slipped the ring onto her finger. "Yes," she said again, louder. "Yes, I will marry you, Haruto Kiyomizu. Despite the terrible start, despite the baits and the lies, despite everything. I love you." He kissed her then, right there in front of everyone, and the hall erupted in chaos. Some applauded, others murmured in outrage. Catherine stormed out. The king looked like he was about to have a seizure, but Yumi didn't care. All that mattered was the man in her arms, who had bet a trophy but ended up betting his heart. 6 months later, On her wedding day, Yumi was in her dressing room when MEI walked in with a strange expression. "There's someone here to see you," he said. "Who?" Serena Blackwood. Yumi tensed. Serena had been noticeably absent since the engagement. "What does she want?" "He says he has information you need to hear." About the bet, against her better judgment, Yumi allowed Serena to enter. The woman looked different, less polished, more human. "Congratulations," Serena said, sounding almost sincere. "I came here to tell you something. Something I probably should have said months ago. That the bet ... wasn't Haruto's idea, not even Ryusei or Damien's." Yumi frowned. "What do you mean?" "It was the king's idea," Serena said. "He orchestrated the whole thing. He knew Haruto would never settle for a normal arranged marriage, so he devised a plan to make Haruto think it was his idea, that it was rebellion. The king vetted each scholarship student, looking for someone who could genuinely capture Haruto's interest. He chose you." "No," Yumi shook her head. "That doesn't make sense." "The king was furious about our engagement, acting," Serena said with a bitter smile. "Where do you think Haruto got his skill?" "The king knew that if Haruto thought he was challenging him, he'd fight harder for you. Reverse psychology at its finest." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Serena sighed, "I realized something watching you too. Real love exists, even if it begins in the most twisted ways. And you deserve to know the whole truth before you marry him." He left before Yumi could answer. Yumi sat down heavily, her mind reeling. Should she tell Haruto? Did it matter how it all started? A knock on the door brought her out of her thoughts. "Yumi." It was Haruto's voice. "I know I'm not supposed to see you before the ceremony, but I need to tell you something." "What is it?" He called through the door. "My dad just confessed something." "About the bet." "Why you am I ... He planned the whole thing. The whole situation was his idea." Yumi opened the door. Haruto stood there in his ceremonial uniform, looking devastated. "I know," he said softly. "Serena just told me. Are you angry?" Yumi considered it. "No. Because no matter how it started, no matter who planned it, what we have now is real, right? More real than anything in my life," he said fervently. "Then nothing else matters," he decided. "Your father may have set the stage, but we write our own story." 2 hours later, as she walked down the hallway toward Haruto, Yumi reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. It had begun with a cruel bet, continued with lies and manipulation, and involved conspiring kings and vengeful ladies. But somehow through it all, they'd found something true, something worth fighting for. As Haruto held hands and they began to exchange vows, Yumi spotted Damien in the audience. She caught his eye, and surprisingly, he smiled and nodded. A recognition, perhaps, that sometimes losing a bet means winning something far more valuable. "I promise," Haruto was saying, "to love you not in spite of how we started, but including how we started. Because every step, every mistake, every lie, and every truth led us here. And this is exactly where I want to be. And I promise," Yumi replied, "to love you not for your title or your power, but for the man who knelt on the ground for me, who risked everything for love, who showed me that even the most imperfect beginnings can lead to the most perfect endings." As they kissed like husband and wife, the hall erupted in applause. Even the king, the master puppeteer, seemed genuinely moved. But while everyone was celebrating, no one noticed the figure in the shadows on the balcony. It was Crown Prince Hiroshi, Haruto's brother, holding a letter with a foreign seal. The letter that would change everything. The letter that would reveal that Yumi was not just a country woodcock. She was the lost heir to the Eastern Empire, hidden since childhood after the coup that killed her real family. Her grandparents had been loyal servants who raised her in secret. And now, without knowing it, Haruto had not married a nobody. He had married the most powerful woman on the continent. The game the king had started was much bigger than anyone had imagined. And it was just getting started, but that's a story for another day. For now, Yumi and Haruto danced under the stars, lost in each other, oblivious to the secrets still waiting to be revealed. Because sometimes true love means not needing to know the whole truth all at once. Sometimes it's enough to know that you're loved for who you are right now, not for who you could be or who you were. And as the music enveloped them and their guests celebrated, Yumi thought that maybe, just maybe, bets on love are always destined to lose ... because real love can't be won. It can only be discovered. Would you forgive someone who bet on your feelings, even if it was all orchestrated by larger forces? Do you believe true love can be born from the most manipulated circumstances? Leave your opinion in the comments, because every love story is different, and yours deserves to be heard too. If this story touched your heart or made you reflect on fate versus choice, please like and share it with someone special. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell, because the revelation of Yumi's true identity will bring consequences neither of them is prepared to face. The Eastern Empire is searching for her, and when they find her ... everything will change. Until next time, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful endings come disguised as the most terrible beginnings.